What? How the hell did I get here? No, I'm not supposed to be here. No. So, I can be a bit of an obsessive person. When I first saw Mercy opening night in theaters, something really bugged me. How could a movie possibly be this bad? I mean, it was awful. Most theorized that it was made by AI and left it at that, but to me there was something more. A hatred, a maliciousness deeply ingrained within the movie that no machine could replicate. To quote my own Letterboxd review, which got 3 likes, a personal record, I want to say it's written by AI, and some of it almost definitely is, but there's something so unmistakably human about how much the writer hates homeless people. So, months later, I decided to start digging through behind-the-scenes footage, interviews, anything I could find to figure out what happened, what is this? And what I found genuinely haunts me. This was not a movie made by AI for people to watch. This was a movie made by people for AI to consume. The interview where the director actually said this stuck out to me in particular. It has less than 400 views, a bad mic and bad camera, where the director just unprompted says that what the Bible is to humanity, mercy is to AI.
Our ancestors did, because it was tribes killing each other, no rules, and then somebody wrote Bible, and somebody wrote narratives, reprogramming the brain, because
What? That's strange on so many levels, but I mean, immediately, I think there's a better historical text to compare Mercy to. Mein Kampf. Let me start with a quick synopsis of this movie because I don't think anybody watched it, and I really doubt that the Amazon movie just happened to be #1 on Amazon Prime for a full week because everybody was watching it. Mercy follows LAPD detective Britt Raven, played by Chris Pratt, who in 2028 is arrested for the murder of his wife. Now he only has 90 minutes to prove his innocence to an AI judge, or he is immediately executed by sonic beams directly at his head. So, I don't know what that's about. Britt Raven then has to unravel the grand mystery surrounding his wife's murder using all cloud-stored information in LA. Smartphones, doorbell cameras, security cameras, literally whatever he wants to look at, he is able to while in the chair. In the process, Britt Raven has to confront his failings as a man, and Judge Maddox, the AI judge, gets empathy somehow. Working together, they catch the real killer and stop his plot to blow up the entirety of Los Angeles. God, this movie sucks. That is, of course, a very brief summary of what sounds like a very generic blockbuster movie, but I think that's why I find Mercy so interesting. The devil's really in the details here. The trial itself is baffling. It seems like they wanted to add stakes by making it a question, like make the audience think this guy might have actually killed his wife. They're trying to decide alongside the judge whether or not he did it.
So you're trying to find a way to defend him as well, or find him guilty as well. So it's neat. It kind of puts, in a fun way, every person on trial who comes to see the movie. You're sitting there and you're like, oh my God, this is 90 minutes. I'm sort of trying to save my own life here.
They wanted to cast a seed of doubt, so pretty immediately we're shown that Britt Raven is a relapsing alcoholic who will go into drunken fits of rage where he will verbally berate his wife, in multiple instances clearly showing physical dominance to her with a clear implication that he could assault her. Also, he has her blood on him during the trial, as before the murder, in one of those drunken fits of rage, he went to their house where, as he puts it, he broke her favorite vase, and one of the shards happened to cut her, and then she wouldn't let him help bandage her up, which is framed as her acting irrationally. He also at one point genuinely considers that he might have done it and just doesn't remember because he was drunk. Jesus Christ. The performance by Chris Pratt is genuinely pretty unnerving. To give the movie credit, and this is probably the one time in this video I will actually give it a compliment, the use of smartphone camera in these scenes give a very grounded perspective of domestic abuse. In another world, this could have been something, a genuine piece of art about a problem in the world today, but to my dismay, Chris Raven is our hero. He is supposed to be likable, and we are supposed to cheer when he succeeds. In fact, he is so obviously unlikable in the movie that the only reason I am saying that he is supposed to be likable, the only reason I'm able to be so confident, is because the director said in an interview that he casted Chris Pratt to make Chris Raven likable, which, it was certainly a choice.
He's a very fragile and very human, and this is what's good for their role, because honestly we don't really know if he did, because for the 90 minutes of the movie we're trying to figure out, and he doesn't know if he killed his wife or not.
Pratt in multiple interviews says that Chris Raven was one of the hardest characters he's ever had to play because of that darkness inside, that darkness to make us doubt his innocence.
So I wanted to focus on trying to find inner parts of myself that are dark enough to where I could just breathe that part of my spirit into it, and it would be believable that I could have murdered my wife.
In one interview specifically, Pratt claimed that Chris Raven is the furthest away from him as a person, which is just so funny, because like out of all the characters he's played, that list includes Dinosaur Wrangler, Space Rogue, Italian-American Plumber, Garfield, and an actual Lego minifigure. But yeah, I'm sure the fourth or so action hero cop he's played, that one's the real challenge of the bunch. These comments themselves aren't exactly strange though. I get why Chris Pratt would voice his challenges with the character. It's pretty typical press interview stuff, but then he starts going into how he actually talked to LAPD officers to prepare for the role, and I gotta address the elephant in the room. Studies have found that 40% of police officers are responsible for domestic abuse within their own household. It is hard to see Mercy's depiction of an LAPD officer abusing his family as a decision made out of ignorance. It feels incredibly deliberate. Yet again though, this is supposed to be our likable protagonist. So look, at no point during this movie do I understand what it's going for. I can't understand what I am supposed to feel at any given moment during this movie's runtime. I can only guess. Around the halfway mark, we get a body cam footage flashback of Raven's old partner dying, which is the event that made him spiral into being an alcoholic. I think that the genuine intention behind this movie, behind that moment, is to make Raven's alcoholism and thus abuse on his family more understandable. Gross.
If he's a homicide detective, he's living right on the precipice of life and death every day. He's bringing violent criminals to justice. He's seeing mutilated and murdered bodies every week. I mean, there's a reason he's an alcoholic. He lost his partner. He's been through it, and he's had a really rough life.
Mercy's depiction of domestic abuse makes a lot more sense in this context. While the movie seems to be saying that, yes, domestic abuse is bad, Raven shouldn't have done it, he also shouldn't have to face any consequences for it, because being a cop is so hard, and he's so traumatized. Oh, boo-hoo. Nicole Raven, the dead wife, is shown a lot through flashbacks, and in almost every single one, she is actively trying to leave the relationship. We see conversations of her contemplating divorce, her actively starting up a new relationship, and most importantly, her taking measures to protect herself from his drunken fits of rage.
I have keys in the truck. I'm gonna go get my keys and unlock the door. Why don't you just be a grown-up?
Do not do that.
Do not come in here. Get out of my house.
Yet the movie can't help but frame these behaviors as completely irrational. The very framework demands that for each of these flashbacks, we cut back to Chris Raven scoffing at the absurdity of her actions and making a small remark about how he would never actually hurt her.
Get back here.
Come on, sweetheart. Let's go.
Sorry, Mom. Are you all right?
Nick!
Christ.
I can be a little fiery. That's a family trait, okay?
Strangely though, it does feel like at a certain point, the movie just suddenly turns in her favor. Maybe that's just something I'm imagining because I am a person with empathy who always felt awful about her situation, and clearly this movie wasn't made for people like that. But a little before the halfway mark, it does feel like the movie starts to frame her leaving the relationship as valid. This is when we're shown Chris Raven having actual character development. Him deciding that, yeah, she was in the right because the relationship was already over at that point. What? So the woman escaping the abusive relationship is only validated when the man, the abuser, decides that actually the relationship was already over? This movie's insane. The big turning point in the movie is actually when Chris Raven basically turns to the camera and says in a dramatic voice, and I kid you not,
The only thing left that makes me think maybe I didn't kill Nick is wondering how the hell I could commit a crime of passion when there was no passion left. Do you think that could be it?
Jesus Christ. I just cannot understand the decision to portray such an obviously sensitive subject with the specific context of him being a police officer with zero tact or empathy for anybody in the situation except the abuser. I think this movie just put an abusive relationship as a central part of its plot just to show that, hey, the main character actually isn't a perfect person. Yeah, I know, I figured that out, yeah. I mean, it worked, I guess, but it's using this super serious issue as a cheap narrative device, and that actively undermines the actual problem. I can't think of a more misinformed and genuinely malicious example of domestic abuse in media than this. So much so that I decided to actually look up the most common misconceptions about abusive relationships, and found this list by womensaid.org, which, generously speaking, Mercy perpetuates 9 out of the 16 myths depicted in this article. So I think it's pretty safe to say that Mercy just hates women, which brings us to, they have a daughter in this movie. Oh God. Mercy doesn't care about Britt Raven. There's an actual scene in this movie where Chris Raven sees an Instagram live stream of what is clearly his daughter being groomed, and it's never really addressed.
I can come get you out of there if you want. You know I can make that happen.
Who the hell is this guy?
Abby, is that like your mom to stop me?
Yeah, maybe. I heard my mom talking to her friend about getting a divorce. Really hope she meant that shit. Shit, you hear that? I think my dad's home. I'm out.
Hey, wait.
What the hell was that?
It's done. Never addressed. It's over. That's not a plot point. Somehow. Not important. Why did they show that? Who knows? Anyway, he's only got 90 minutes to prove his innocence. However, there is characterization here. Just breadcrumbs of it. Stuff you have to really piece together to get the idea that this is a real person, but it is there. And it's concerning, to say the least. Early in the film, it's revealed that Britt, in her dad's absence, has entered somewhat of a rebellious phase, with a second Instagram where she posts pictures of herself in what I assume the production thought alternative fashion looked like. I don't know. She also posts stuff protesting the Mercy program and the use of AI in general. This is never addressed. For the most part, her role is to question her dad's innocence and call him every once in a while and go, hey, so-and-so said you did it. I can't believe you killed her.
Grandpa says you don't get the mercy trial unless you're guilty.
Don't listen to your grandfather, okay? I know how this works and mistakes do happen. Do you hear me? I didn't kill your mom. I swear to God.
Everyone on the internet saying you must be guilty if you're at mercy.
She's wildly suggestible to a comedic level. I mean, literally, she just parrots whatever whoever is around her is saying about her dad. There is this strange implication that all of her leftist views and alternative fashion is a direct result from her being so easily swayed and convinced. And in the absence of her father, because the old ball and chain kicked him out, the worst fate possible befell their daughter. She went woke. Bwomp, bwomp, bwomp. Her views aren't valid to this movie. Her vocal opposition to the systems of government this movie represents are ignored because we are supposed to see her as ridiculous. Her politics aren't the result of anything she does, it is just a failure of her father. And her autonomy is completely stripped away. Her only real role in the movie is for her father to step up, become a better man, and in that way save her from her own leftist views. Also, I have nowhere else to put this, but the dialogue for her is god-awful. Clearly, they didn't know how a teenage girl talks, which isn't exactly surprising. What is surprising is the amount of confidence it takes to play this line 3 times.
I mean, it's a freaking ghost hunt, or I'm ripped off my tits. I mean, it's a freaking ghost hunt, or I'm ripped off my tits. Calls like bad news, guys.
Pause it. We always keep that door closed. Play it again.
I mean, it's a freaking ghost hunt, or I'm ripped off my tits.
Stop playing it. It's so bad. And it's so forced to show how like juvenile she really is, which also goes into like discrediting her views more. It's ridiculous. Her arc ends in the last scene of the movie where, after being lured into a semi-truck by the main villain like a stranger danger video, she is bravely saved by her dad.
No way. No, he wouldn't. No way.
She then spends the ending wordlessly clinging to her dad, which, look, in a traumatic situation, that is a pretty reasonable response. I can't criticize the movie too much for that, but I can't help but think of the symbolism in that moment. This girl's entire characterization is being easily swayed. That is her core flaw in the movie, and we see that by her in danger of being groomed and actually being kidnapped. However, the movie doesn't end with her changing, her becoming more confident in herself and her own views. It ends with her silently clinging to her abusive cop dad. She doesn't need to make choices for herself, and we're supposed to see that as a good thing. Britt Raven is an abuser. In this movie's attempt to frame him as a potentially guilty person, they made him such an obviously evil human being that there is no way that in just 90 minutes he could ever recover into a likable character. I have never seen a movie before where everybody I was watching it with agreed that we just wished he got wrongfully executed at the end because he is such a bad person. How does that happen exactly? How do these people go through writing, acting, directing, editing, and never once go, maybe we made him too bad? I think it's just because he's a cop. Despite all the obvious evils he commits inside his own home, he is still this perfect paradigm of right and wrong. It's a really strange alteration, or perhaps straight up reversal of what is commonly known, that abusers will take out the stress of their lives onto their family members rather than dealing with it like a healthy person. It kind of feels like Mercy thinks that this is a fair trade-off. The movie never criticizes him as a cop. He's a great cop because he never lets the job get to him. Only his family. His coping method of abusing his family is shown to be effective, which is terrifying how misinformed and dangerous that stance is. Mercy is such a strange movie because it does seem to be somewhat aware of certain systemic issues that it's portraying, but it can't actually view them as issues. It can't actually address them. They're just there. Yet, for some reason, it can't help but portray them. Mercy portrays an authoritarian dystopia despite what feels like its best efforts not to. And despite all the obvious propaganda that's tacked onto it, it feels like it can't deny the truth, as it consistently shows cops as being wildly incompetent.
I mean, Timur has wild ideas about the state of the world, the way it should be, the way it could be.
and he has a sense of adventure in his decision making that, you know, can only work. He's the only person who could have made this movie.
Third act of this movie is almost entirely dedicated to the strangest chase scene I've ever seen. The villain's trying to blow up the Mercy Court with this semi-truck filled with explosives, but apparently it will also blow up the entirety of LA. Yet throughout the entire chase scene, he is honking his horn and swerving out of the way of pedestrians. There's a deliberate decision to have him avoid civilian casualties during this chase scene, yet he wants to blow up all of LA? I don't understand. I can't help but think that maybe they thought that people would be cheering for him too much if he just wanted to blow up the Mercy Court, so maybe they changed it later so that he wanted to blow up all of Los Angeles to make him more obviously evil. But I don't want to delve into like full conspiracies yet. During this chase though, these cop cars keep trying to pull insane stunts on the semi-truck with absolutely no chance of doing anything to it, and whenever they fail, they just go careening off into crowds of people. Like, genuinely, these cop cars, I think, have the highest kill count in the entire movie. The one that really makes me laugh is it looks like this cop was going to try to pit maneuver the semi-truck, and then the truck pushed them a little bit, and it causes them to fly directly into a crowded cafe. It feels like this movie, in its incessant need for spectacle to justify itself as a movie, stumbled into showing the police as so wildly reckless and the ones causing the most damage. Also, remember, this takes place in 2028, which means the police have a bunch of sci-fi gadgets. Most notably is this quadcopter thing that Officer Jack, Raven's current partner, has. It doesn't accomplish anything in the movie. There's one scene where they say like, oh, we'll never make it in time on a police car, and then they just take the quadcopter. But then when they get there, a cop car pulls up the exact same time they do, so I'm not exactly sure what the point was. Genuinely though, it's a pretty generic sci-fi gadget, and it's not really my problem with it. My main problem is that only the police have this. This movie really just likes the idea of the police having a bigger budget and better gadgets, also that they can patrol from the sky, corralling people in the red zones. We gotta talk about the red zones. Mercy opens with some in-world advertisement for the Mercy program. It's overall just some really forced exposition, but it does have the job of somehow validating the Mercy program's existence. The reasoning it comes up with, the supposed need for Mercy, is a crime epidemic where criminals have completely overtaken the streets of Los Angeles.
Millions of people have been affected by crime. Civil unrest was at an all-time high, and mass unemployment and homelessness drove Los Angeles into a crime epidemic. Prisons were overcrowded.
They've run out of room in the prisons because there's just that many people committing crime. So the first solution before Mercy is the establishment of red zones, where they fence off entire streets for them to throw criminals into, for them to live homeless in tents.
Citywide red zones were established to restrict individuals implicated in violent activities.
I mean, Timur has wild ideas.
One of the red zones they mention is Hollywood Boulevard. The entire Hollywood Boulevard that they fenced off for a makeshift prison camp. Where do I even start with this? This is gross. It likens all homeless people to criminals, which is just the exact type of rhetoric that encourages really gross misunderstandings and a lack of empathy for people who need it the most, people unable to afford the very basic necessities they need to live. It also misunderstands crime as a concept, or more accurately, has zero interest in understanding it. The correlation between homelessness and crime is obvious. People who can't afford basic necessities, their fundamental human rights, will probably steal them to survive. A child could figure this out. The thing that really grabs my attention about this, though, is that in a way, this is a strangely accurate and poignant metaphor about how we treat criminals. Sure, we have to ignore the prison industrial complex and the reason the US has such high incarceration rates. And, you know, because the cornerstone of the US economy is slavery. But if we ignore all of that, there's something there. Somebody is branded a criminal and they are just thrown onto the streets with no way of getting a job or affording the basic necessities. It removes any veneer that this system is at all about rehabilitation. It is a death sentence through neglect. If only this were a different movie. According to Mercy, criminals deserve to be othered because they threaten our way of life. This movie depicts a dystopia in which the ruling class is being told that this other, the criminals, the criminal epidemic, threatens them. So they have to give things up. Their streets, which include shops, tourist attractions, general sources of joy, they all have to give those things up in order to stop the other.
After 2 years in operation, this program is the reason you can sleep peacefully at night. The freedoms that all Americans cherish are now protected by a system designed to eliminate threats quickly and efficiently.
This is all part of their service to, you know, their country, their fellow people, all to stop the crime epidemic. Mercy portraying its world with anything but an indictment is fascist propaganda. That's fascism. I described fascism. Some of you watching may be more hesitant to agree because the way we're taught about fascism hinges on it existing with certain, like, dog whistles, I guess, of things that, you know, Germany did when it was fascist. Mercy, seemingly unknowingly, reinvented fascism in a vacuum and is genuinely pitching it as if to say, yeah, I think this will make the world a better place.
Wild ideas.
Oddly, Mercy shows really well the dangers in how we teach about fascism. When we put so much focus on the label, the word, and not the definition, the actual political system it describes, somebody can just not use the label and show stuff that is clearly fascist. I can't help but think of this movie as a result of truly having bought into the conservative propaganda that is spouted today, where criminals just run amok in the streets everywhere, and when the government finally gets the chance to do something about it, it's only a coincidence that they exclusively target minorities. This movie proudly flaunts the willful ignorance required to actually have conservative views. It honestly makes me wonder if Mercy is is this just how conservatives see the world? Watching the movie, I got this strange deja vu when they mention the crime epidemic, specifically when they mention rioting and show footage of the riots, the crime epidemic, rah. I don't have a ton of evidence for this next claim, just pattern recognition, but I can't help but think that this is echoing conservative rhetoric around the Black Lives Matter movement. They completely removed the context of inequality behind these actions and instead just label these people as violent criminal rioters. And the narrative just doesn't make any sense with this. People aren't just insane, they do things for reasons. Nobody's just causing mayhem because they're crazy. But that's what the crime epidemic is that Mercy describes. Yet the thing is, whenever somebody chooses to willfully ignore racism as a concept, pretend it doesn't exist, they always manage to stumble into it.
Representation in mainstream media. You know, somebody can look that up, 50, 100 years from now, and who looks like me or who is indigenous as well, or all the boxes I check, and that makes me really proud.
Wow.
I love that.
You know, my genetic test told me that I'm from Kazakhstan, and it's the same Kazakhstan or Native American.
I feel like
you see,
I feel like we're
out.
Feel like out of line. Something happened.
There are exactly 3 non-white named characters in this movie, and they are all just positioned super suspiciously. First, we have Raven's old partner who died tragically. not really a character, just a prop to justify Raven's abuse on his family. Then we have Officer Jack, who, in my opinion, starts off the movie pretty likably. She's the only character in the movie to actually contend Raven screaming about how you shouldn't be in this chair. I put people in this chair. She responds saying some stuff like nobody's immune to the system. It's not perfect by any means, but it's something. Anyways, she ends up being a twist villain who threw away evidence to ensure that Mercy always executes people. That whole thing with Raven, that she contended him, that was foreshadowing that she was a villain, actually. The weird part to me, though, is the movie ending with her being arrested, the ridding of corruption within the police department, and it just so happens that it's also the ridding of the only member of the department who wasn't a white man. I'm aware that my interpretations are pessimistic. These could easily be chopped up to mistakes made out of ignorance, though that doesn't exactly mean these examples are okay. But the only reason I'm being this harsh is because of the last example. The man who Raven's wife cheats on him with is a black man who it feels like the movie is constantly trying to label a criminal to justify police brutality on him. Patrick is introduced as a suspect that Officer Jack needs to track down for Raven, with him already being in a red zone, guilty of Social Security fraud, which already that's weird. I'm by no means an expert in Social Security fraud, but I do know that conservatives really like to overinflate how big of a problem it is in order to discredit certain groups of people as scam artists stealing their hard-earned money instead of, questioning government spending. However, he's a professional chef working at a very nice hotel. Him being a criminal isn't necessary to the plot at all. In fact, it creates multiple plot holes. Like, why is there a really nice hotel in the prison camp? And how did he meet Raven's wife at a farmer's market when he's in the prison camp? Him being in the red zone is just there to justify any brutality that the movie wants to enact on him. Officer Jack punches him numerous times and then throws him off a roof, which luckily, I guess, only threw him off one story because there was like an awning thing. But don't worry, he's guilty because he ran.
You kidding me? Come on, guilty people run.
He exists solely for this revenge fantasy punching bag, Raven getting back at the guy who took his wife. It's gross. When he's eventually handcuffed, he's very quickly able to prove his innocence, give a perfect alibi that Raven should have been able to check very easily. It was on security cameras, which he has access to all of them. Raven gets frustrated with the dead end and just orders Officer Jack to arrest him, to which she obliges. Raven is on trial for murder and still has that much power over this guy who was just doing his job. And then when the call ends, Raven calls him a deadbeat. Him? It's such an insane moment because genuinely, what did he do to deserve that other than piss off Raven? Nobody, at no point during the movie does Raven, the abuser, get anywhere near that amount of pushback. I do have to hand it to Jeff Peer, though, the actor for Patrick, because despite the movie trying to make him so hateable, I think he is easily the most likable character in the whole movie. Like I've said before, I can't gauge intentionality with this movie. I'm not sure how good of a partner Patrick was supposed to be to Nicole. But I think these lines could have been read very differently, playing into the stolen wife fantasy more, but instead, there's a genuine compassion brought to this role by Jeff Peer. My favorite part about this movie by far is when Raven has to call Patrick in the holding cell Raven put him in and ask basic questions about his wife's work life. Patrick just gets to lay into him, really look down on him for how bad of a husband he was, and then you remember what movie you're watching. Raven's abuse is belittled into him not listening enough. Oh, and Patrick willingly aids Raven in the case despite, saying earlier that he thinks Raven actually killed her. Like, he genuinely believes that. And after helping, he isn't released out of the holding cell or anything. That's the last time he appears. That's it. He's out of the movie. He's just still in that holding cell. Oh, God.
You wouldn't even have to ask me. Hey, Bert, go screw yourself.
It's the case I was referring to earlier with Officer Jack, by the way. She discarded the cell phone of the Mercy Court's first case because it provided a perfect alibi to the murder he was convicted of. The villain, Robert's final speech, is honestly a little haunting. David, his brother, was trying to get clean and off the streets. They were specifically calling during the time of the murder because David was reaching out for help. They were separated when Robert was adopted, so David stayed in the system, and I guess in that way he just never really stood a chance. And another strange choice that I should just really stop thinking about at this point, Judge Maddox decides to put up a video of the phone call while Robert is talking about it, showing that, yeah, the AI had access to the security cam footage of David talking on the phone during the time of the murder. I was a little confused at first. How did in-world this footage not get found until now? David had access to all cloud storage. Why didn't he just ask for the video of that spot during the murder? After my first viewing, though, I was talking it over with my friend, and he just mentioned how unfair it was for David, how the odds were never in his favor. At the start of the movie, Judge Maddox reveals that Raven had actually been sitting there for a couple of hours before the trial started. The system waited until his blood alcohol level dropped to an appropriate level for the trial to start. David was a drug addict trying to get clean, probably having withdrawals during his trial because the system waited until he was sober enough to start. Given nearly unlimited knowledge, sure, but with a system that we are shown even our main character, a cop, struggles to navigate because it is so unintuitive. Also, throughout the movie, Judge Maddox has this strange fixation on solving the case the correct way, saying things like the clues need to be solved in order. A police detective has such an overt advantage in this setting when the AI demands that you solve it according to police protocol.
It certainly worked in Raven's favor that he was a detective in that moment where he had to prove himself. So
yeah, it definitely did.
For the regular citizen, I don't know if they would be so good at that.
You're just right. Yeah, I mean, who's really going to be able to defend themselves? Yeah.
And so, Rebecca, same question. What are your thoughts on the justice system, reform?
Really, I think he covered it completely.
David never stood a chance. God, who knows if the phone would have even helped at that point. This reveal results in Officer Jack getting arrested and Judge Maddox realizing they made a mistake. There is a moment of just emotion here. I'm not sure if it's Judge Maddox feeling guilty or Rebecca Ferguson confused as to why she's still here, but there is emotion there. Raven sees this and delivers the last line of the movie, "May it live in infamy."
What have we done?
We just did what we're programmed to do. Human or AI. We all make mistakes. And we learn.
Not only the culmination of his own arc, forgiving himself for the 2 years of domestic abuse he inflicted onto his family, because that's what 2 years of the same pattern of violent behavior is, a single mistake, but also an endorsement for the AI to forgive itself. What lesson did the supercomputer learn that would prevent what happened to David from happening again? Who knows? The line is an obvious, strange, pro-AI tidbit propaganda piece, just kind of thrown in there for some reason. It's weird, it's gross, I think everyone can understand that, but I do think you can dig a little deeper into this line, and it gets worse. The AI in this movie is indicative of the system itself. The police, the government, the red zones, all of it is integral to this AI. This line to me is not only an endorsement of the AI, but also the clear fascist dystopia it represents. Sure, this fascist society clearly has problems, but the most important thing to this movie is that we just let it play out. The flaws will work themselves out eventually. According to Mercy, Any radical actions such as posting leftist things on Instagram, leaving your abusive husband, blowing up the mercy court, or existing as a homeless person are all completely ridiculous because everyone makes mistakes and the government shouldn't be held accountable for them. This movie has ample chances to disavow the obviously terrible system it represents, but instead by the end all it can say is the AI that kills you is actually good because it's better for innocent people to die than for these criminals to keep living. David isn't guilty of murder, but the movie still treats him as guilty because he was a homeless drug addict. So while his wrongful execution is unfair, it also isn't particularly tragic. The lesson here for Judge Maddox is supposed to be her having doubts about whether or not a person is guilty, giving them a chance to prove themselves. It's a very generous interpretation, and I'm only really saying that because in multiple interviews they explicitly say that's what the point of her arc is, so sure, let's go with that. It's not showing that guilty until proven innocent is a bad system. In fact, the movie validates it at one point, showing this random graph showing that crime's gone down 70% because everyone's so scared of getting executed, which that's not how that works. Statistically, that is not how the death penalty affects crime. This part isn't in my script, but last night I was going back and checking my sources and I found this one clip of Chris Pratt talking about the real conundrum of this movie.
That mercy court as a deterrent, I'm saying in the movie, violent crime has dropped. Mercy as a deterrent has been effective. And so in that regard, it's like, even if all 18 people that had been killed, maybe from Jack's perspective, not to speak for your character, but even if all 18 people who had been killed, it was questionable, and you got some of them right and some of them wrong, but violent crime dropped by 70%, and all of a sudden you have 300 more people not being murdered every year. Is that a trade-off you're willing to accept? And I think that's the tough questions you have to ask.
That's just not how it works. You're making up stuff. This isn't like a good hypothetical. There's a small flashback in the movie which shows why Raven championed the mercy court. His partner who died, their murderer, was found innocent by the court. The judicial system didn't work. Raven even makes a comment that he should have just shot the guy in the head rather than arresting him, which, okay. Yeah, the resolution of this movie is so weird because they claim to fix the problems with the AI judge by giving it humanity, the very thing that's cited as the problem with the old judicial system, which leads to a very important problem. Why does the mercy court still have to be AI? Rocco's Basilisk is a 2010 thought experiment that suggests a possible future in which a supercomputer AI is created that then goes around systematically killing everybody who knew about its existence but didn't aid in its creation. The idea is, now that I've told you of its existence, you have two choices. Ignore it and hope it doesn't exist to one day kill you, or help create it. That way guaranteeing your safety, but condemning all the people who did ignore it to death. I'm a huge fan of stupid hypotheticals. I enjoy them way too much. I once saw a post that parodied this one saying, imagine if there's boots so big, like one day there's gonna be boots so big that you have to start licking them right now. That's so funny. I'll put the original poster up here if I'm able to find it while editing, but I first heard of the hypothetical while researching cognitohazards. It's a concept that interests me a lot, the idea that having information could be a danger to you. If the basilisk were to ever actually exist though, I wouldn't doubt having the information of it. I would blame all the people who chose to put their safety above so many others out of fear for a maybe. It is not 2010 anymore, and we have a lot more information than we used to when we think about discussing this hypothetical. AI is no longer a far distant inevitability with intellect comparable to a god able to read our minds to see if we knew about it or not. AI is a joke. There are obvious dangers with AI, just not the ones we expected. It's not going to turn us into a slug monster to torture us for eternity. It's a lying plagiarism machine that for some reason people still look up to like it is a god. The horror is it driving itself insane with its own lies that it drags whoever's talking to it down with it because they are so desperate for confirmation bias that this thing is actually intelligent. The director of Mercy's views on AI are ridiculous, but I doubt they're unique. To him, AI is that all-knowing God and a joke. He can't deny its flaws, but the AI still has to represent this flawless divinity to him. Watching him go from interview to interview, jumping through so many mental hoops in order to justify these two conflicting realities is more entertaining than the movie could have ever been.
It depends what you mean by good. An AI could be excellent at the consistency, speed, and removing some human bias, but it lacks empathy, moral judgment, and accountability. Not in our case. I don't agree with that because I think the movie we made proves that AI could feel, it could take responsibility, and could forgive, it could make mistakes.
He likens AI to a child a lot, to justify his own stance and explain the flaws, focusing on the potential it possesses rather than what it actually is. More importantly than that, though, it seems that this metaphor of comparing it to AI has given him some twisted sense of responsibility.
I think, first of all, the quality of AI content today is very, very primitive. I mean, the quality. Because for one reason, professional filmmakers, talented filmmakers, is not really training AI yet. It's only a bunch of teenagers just creating some videos, and I think it's our mission today to enlighten or to help AI to be more talented.
According to him, it is our responsibility to usher in this new species and teach it how to be good and benevolent despite our many flaws.
Then maybe we can reprogram AI, because we can reprogram AI only by telling stories. Exactly the same way our ancestors did, because it was tribes killing each other, no rules, barbarians, whatever it is.
You learn from your mistakes.
And then somebody wrote Bible, and somebody wrote narratives, reprogramming the brain, because it was only instincts. Yeah, it was only instincts and ruthless, whatever.
That's kind of smart. So you're saying you want to create stories that teach AI about the dangers of itself.
Yes.
So that AI will be like, oh, I'm capable of that. That's a no-no. And then
AI. I'm sure AI will fall in love with Chris Pratt, with his character, and will say, "Oh, I like him more than the bad guy in the movie." Yeah, and it's how AI will be corrected.
So there's just a bunch of Freudian slips there. I think that clip is really more telling of his worldview than he ever intended it to be, but there's a lot to unpack. The version of history he's spouting is exceptionally strange and gross. Painting all of humanity as inherently barbaric before the Bible is such an intentionally skewed perspective. It ignores the inherent altruism of those first civilizations that humanity created, and also the acts of depravity that took place after the Bible, some of those in the name of the Bible, like the Crusades. He's also citing the Bible as the creation of narrative itself, which is just not true. Actually incredibly easy to disprove. We have tons of stories older than the Bible. Oldest story we have predates it by 2,000 years, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and that's just the ones we have recorded. The only way I can make any sense of that comment is if we adopt a very narrow-minded view of what a narrative is, something that teaches good moral values. I really hope by this point I have shown that mercy is not something that instills good morals. In fact, I think that this is the worst thing you could possibly show in AI. The director theorizes that the AI will see Judge Maddox, the Mercy program, make these mistakes, hurt Chris Raven, and learn from it. I love stories that try to do that try to teach you a lesson through the characters. I think it's one of the most beautiful things about storytelling in general. And it's something that inherently requires empathy. After so many times of mentioning that I simply have too much empathy to understand what this movie was trying to get across, and here the director is explicitly saying, this is what I was trying to get across to who. And the target audience fundamentally doesn't have enough empathy to understand that. AI cannot place itself in somebody else's shoes, learn from somebody else's mistakes, and that's not a limitation that will one day be surpassed. That's by design. AI has no concept of consequence. It cannot feel the pain every day that allows us to empathize with each other.
And AI is a child because we created AI, and it's on us how AI will grow.
Likening AI to a child is hilarious because when you think about it for 2 seconds, I am in no way responsible for this thing's existence. I don't have any responsibility to it. It feels like a misuse of the word responsibility. I think a more accurate term for how the director actually feels about AI is fear.
And every click, every word we say or type digitally and online, it's a data for AI, and AI learn on us. And it's a huge responsibility for us today how we behave digitally in digital space, because it could be too late. If the parents fighting or the family is not following the 10 Commandments, whatever, the AI and the child will understand. Okay, I can lie, I can steal, I can kill, I can.
Fear that if you don't aid in its creation, that the basilisk is going to come get you next. In a roundabout way, Rocco's basilisk did end up being a cognitohazard. Not because it can read your mind and kill you because you knew about it, but because it added to the cultural perception of what AI is. This insane intelligence that can only be described through religious analogs, a completely fictitious idea which is now being used to market what are actually LLMs or large language models that they just call AI because it makes you think of the basilisk or AM or Skynet or Ultron or the 100 other examples of AI in media. It's a grand deception to sell a product that Mercy buys into wholeheartedly. This movie wanted to be the first real movie that addressed the problem of AI, but this is not about the AI we have today. This is not about the problem we are facing. This is the same fictitious idea of AI we've had for decades, right down to the generic trope of it gaining humanity somehow, like, I don't know, Terminator, Her, or How to Build a Better Boy. I genuinely wanted to make this video to show that Mercy wasn't made with AI, that it is incredibly flawed, but it is still human. And I think in a way, I have shown that, but I also think I was wrong. I truly doubt that this director who admits to training an AI to direct for him was the one really making all the decisions. At least I don't think any decisions were made without oversight from his AI director mini-me. I mean, hell, the part of the interview where he mentions this is in direct response to being asked if he's scared AI will take his job, to which he says,
No. I mean, I'll be happy if somebody will take my job, and I'll be just a dreamer and
go to Disneyland. There you go.
Disneyland, and just enjoy the life, nature, and somebody will work for me.
He then goes on to describe not only the AI he's making to help him direct, but a second AI that's there to help him dream. What's the point? of any of this then? God, I mean, just how heartbreaking is that he needs an AI to dream? At another point in the interview, the director goes into AI hallucinations, which is a huge problem with the technology. It is the AI's ability to just lie and pass it off as truth. It is like the main reason for AI psychosis. These AIs are marketed as genius intellects that can answer any question, but in reality, they are made to never disagree or question the authority of the human using it. Made to lie and fabricate information, all to justify the whims of whoever is using it, validate their worldview despite everything else, just to avoid conflict. The director likens this habit to actual human creativity, which, where do I even start?
And then also AI can hallucinate, which is, I think it's not a problem. It's a benefit for us because hallucination, it's imagination. And when people say, oh, you're a visionary director, suddenly understood that AI has unbelievable vision,
yeah,
which we call hallucination because it's not what you expect and what you want, but it's its own creative process.
It really sucks feeling like we have to validate human expression and art to these people, constantly having to redefine what makes these things valuable in simpler and simpler terms in the hopes that they will eventually understand why AI isn't a good idea. What makes human art extraordinary, though, is the details. The thousands of moment-to-moment decisions, those minute details just that are there for half a second, all to convey an idea that they have no other way of expressing. I lost my tape. Originally, this video was supposed to be like 10 minutes long of me quickly talking about a movie I really didn't like, but originally this video was supposed to be like 10 minutes long of me talking about a movie that I really didn't like, and then I'd go back to making comic analysis, but the deeper I dug, the more I found, and it just kept growing. There was a section here dedicated to my conspiracy theories of what went on behind the scenes, but when I went back to edit it, I found that one, I sounded completely deranged. I actually reached out to Marco Van Beel, the writer, over Instagram, pretty overtly asking if my theories were true. He didn't get back to me. And also, the things I was referencing didn't exist. The writer for Mercy did not say anything in these interviews that alluded to the fact that the original script might have been opposed to the ideas Mercy would later represent. I made that up. I still think that there were some changes made, but my theory that the entire script was twisted by Chris Pratt and Timur Bekmambetov was a little outlandish. I still think that the final scene was completely reshot, and I think that the line, human or AI, we all make mistakes and we learn, was improvised by Chris Pratt, but I mean, there's not a lot of evidence for that, and I'm really just going off of me having to watch hours and hours of Chris Pratt interviews to the point where I think I'm like the leading expert on how he talks. So just a hunch based on that. I was so desperate to have a story worth actually investing into that I think I was so desperate to have a story worth investing into that I think I just made one up. I think this video is kind of a mess. I wanted to make this very all-encompassing video that was everything you would ever need to know about Mercy so that no one would even have to think of this movie again after watching this video, but I think that was an ambitious goal, and I'm not sure if it was ever possible. I don't know everything that went on behind the scenes for this movie, so I'm not sure I can call this video a success in the way I wanted it to be, but I'm proud of it. You know, I'm proud that I'm not including my ramblings from a week of sleep deprivation. I'm making a hard choice to make a better video. I'm deleting something that I put a lot of work into retroactively. And that is something AI can't replicate. AI is fundamentally incapable of making good art. It can mimic certain styles, it can look and sound like the things we like, but it'll never really be that. And I think we'll be able to tell. I think that people already have an instinct for detecting authenticity when consuming art. One of the interview clips I found most interesting, or I guess most sad, is this one.
I believe that we will train our own like partners, co-directors, because I made a lot of movies with the co-directors.
Of course.
And I like it because for me, filmmaking, it's all about collaboration.
This fundamentally misunderstands what films being cooperative means. I have to give a specific shout out here to 3 of the interviews I used, because they were the only ones that really challenged the movie and its thought process. Those being Blacktree.tv, Black Girl Nerds, and Pay or Wait. It's no coincidence that all 3 of the interviewers there are women of color. They saw the baffling politics in this movie and were able to point it out, giving me so many clips of Chris Pratt just saying insane stuff. So really huge thank you to them. But that's why films are cooperative. That's why we value collaboration. A more diverse group of people is better at pointing stuff out like this, pointing out these obvious mistakes and challenging the film to make it better with their different perspectives. Whether the director realizes it or not, he's pitching AI as an alternative to diversity. AI is an existential threat that I struggle with more than my own mortality. The idea that every word I will ever write will eventually be fed into a machine that will regurgitate garbage that sounds and looks like what I create is horrifying. Also, it's literally poisoning our water supply if that wasn't comically evil enough for you. I'm not exactly sure what answers I expected to find in Mercy, but the idea that production companies might already be using generative AI to make movies was horrifying to me. And I really struggled with this video because genuinely with Mercy, I can't tell. I can't tell. This is either the best AI has to offer or the absolute worst that humanity has to offer, because that's what it threatens to replace. AI won't make anything good. It'll make content, which is still scary, don't get me wrong, but in a like culture where people are constantly craving something original, nobody saw Mercy. Project Hail Mary did fantastic at the box office, but nobody saw Mercy. Mercy has its defenders, sort of. I found maybe 2 Reddit threads claiming that the movie wasn't actually that bad. But we live in a culture around movies right now that, for better or worse, general audiences aren't going to see anything unless they hear that it is the best thing in the last 10 years. And only then will they get up and go to the theaters. Which means that the only people, that line of defense of the people talking about the movie when it first comes out, are the people who genuinely appreciate art. It's taken me a while to write this conclusion because I keep having the instinct to try to predict the future, say exactly what our future looks like with AI, what is going to happen to art, and I just don't know that. I have to assume it's that same instinct, feeling like you have to have the absolute most correct answer all the time, that makes people so susceptible to buying into a technology that apparently will give them the correct answer whenever they want it. AI replicates the exact behavior that we've been told is expected from us our entire lives. AI is the perfect little capitalist. We've been heading down this road for a while. I guess AI was always an inevitability, but not in the way of Rocco's Basilisk, but more that capitalism was always going to end with a machine with no will trading imaginary currency for imaginary goods and claiming that it's actually really intelligent. It's scary what's going on, especially the environmental impact, though. I'm saving that for next video. But just remember that AI is more emblematic of what the world wants from you at large. You, in your own bubble, drowning yourself in your own opinions and misinformation until you effectively become flanderized. Remember to go outside, talk to people somehow, join a book club, take a walk, just do something. The future is not you strapped to a chair in an empty room talking to an AI. Remember that you are an intelligent person who can come to good choices. You don't have to rely on anything or anyone to make the objectively right decision because that decision just doesn't exist. All of this is made up. You can trust and rely on your own instincts or try your entire life to make the perfect choice and end up making mercy. So, real Sophie's choice there, huh? Ooh. I'm so done with this. I just want to thank everybody so much for watching. This video was kind of a nightmare to make, but I'm done with it. Hooray. I cut another section of me specifically kind of just complaining for 30 minutes about the filmmaking of Mercy. I might release that separately. Let me know if you'd want to see that. I also just want to give a specific shout out to my friends and their band, Stiffness After Death on Spotify, which I used a lot of their music in this video. I was looking for copyright-free music. There is so much AI nowadays, so thank you to them for specifically letting me use actual music.